We originally had in our district two Title IX coordinators. My predecessor, the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel, worked with staff issues, complaints. The Assistant Superintendent of Operations worked with athletics and facility complaints and issues. Because of the OCR Dear Colleague letter that emphasized the importance of having that centralized, we made sure we had someone who would not have a conflict of interest and who could, from an objective point of view, handle Title IX issues. We also decided to give it the Title IX Administrator in our district, just because coordinator had already emphasized a couple different roles in our district, and we wanted to make sure that we emphasized that this was the department that could both handle complaints and address complaints. We've used training both in person and through an online module, Global Compliance Network, as well as reinstituted, if you will, our format on our website in order to access Title IX information. In regards to the training, we held 3-hour trainings with directors and principals and very similar training introducing the board to Title IX and with our community advisory committee with some of our stakeholders. And then we implemented the online training through GCN for all of our staff, from substitute support to certified staff. Our goal was to have a one-click process when it comes to our website, so that you were no more than one click away from accessing Title IX, the Title IX page. And you make reports through our district and clicking on the Title IX, and it allows you to access an email that we have created called Title IX at norman.k12.ok.us, so that it's all centralized. We decided that we would keep Title IX and Title VI and some other discrimination issues as a focal point of our administrators during their monthly meetings. And so we don't necessarily have it on the agenda every month, but we have it on the agenda quite often on a monthly basis when we meet with our principals and directors. And so we follow up to make sure that all levels K through 12 have a very similar understanding. Just kind of a check-in, status check. We were also didn't feel like it at the time, but very fortunate to have a visit by the Department of Justice because of some of the more publicized issues in Norman, and really wanted to take a look at our processes on handling Title IX complaints. That proved very fortuitous for us because they did the same thing. They checked with our principals, our administrators, to make sure they had a good understanding whether we had successfully communicated to our stakeholders and our patron. And our initial feedback from that Department of Justice visit is that our game plan that we rolled out for communication had been successful, and our principals and directors and stakeholders were able to determine and answer with great validity and fidelity Title IX questions. Well, we've obviously had some pretty well publicized cases, but just as a whole, our district is no different than any other, that we've had a number of complaints about sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, sexual violence. I think it's important to note for other Title IX administrators that the more you make the information available to your stakeholders, parents, you should expect to see an uptick and an upswing in complaints. And that's a good thing because if they were happening, you want to know about them so that you can address them. And the more you advertise how to report, the more reporting you're going to get. And those reports in those cases have had to do with, again, unwanted contact and touching between students, both on campus, off campus, traveling to and from school activities. And we receive that information from either student reports, online, anonymous reporters sometimes, but we feel like our students are becoming more comfortable reporting to our advocacy coordinators and our principals at our sites. Like all districts, or like most districts hopefully, we have a discrimination policy that we adhere to, and that includes discrimination based on race, sex, and other things. And so we feel like that definition of sex and discrimination includes the use of bathrooms. And so knowing that it's an uncomfortable issue, sometimes for students, parents, teachers, community, our game plan, what we've done at our sites, is that we have attempted to provide an opportunity and a facility that any student could use. That facility is gender neutral. We try to make the facility, we make sure that it's single stall and a locked door. Very similar that you would find, and I think people are familiar with bathrooms that you would find at shopping centers or public arenas or in large places like our schools. You have one that's marked male, female, and then one that any gender could use. And so really we don't get into the question as it would be discriminatory to do so as far as which sex were you born. And so if a student presents themselves as a female student or a male student, obviously again discriminatory to ask any person what sex were you born, and so that person has an opportunity to use a bathroom that's gender neutral, again single stall and locks, or to use the bathroom for the gender in which they present themselves. We learned that communication is extremely important between levels. And even inside of a building, and high school can be a very big place, and to make sure that that even the administrators and teachers are communicating with one another, not to keep things in isolation and feel like you're handling the problem, but make sure that the person who can truly address it at the site level, and then my office here at the district level, is completely and fully aware of allegations and complaints, so that we can put the full resources of the district in trying to investigate and resolve and provide remedies for those students. And so communication is extremely important. Documentation, to make sure that you have an accurate and adequate trail to look back and see the statements that students have made. And so documentation, proper investigation techniques to make sure you can do it both promptly but also effectively. And then reporting, how do you then report out to everyone? A lesson that we learned is some of our maybe old school administrator habits. We had to relearn some of those and even throw some of those out, in the sense that when someone feels unsafe in a school, we have an obligation to make sure we provide them enough information where here's how we've handled it, so that you know you're not going to walk around the corner and see someone who you felt committed sexual misconduct or some kind of sexual aggression or sexual harassment towards you. And so that means rethinking how much information we share with reporting students. And so those are some of our big lessons learned. We started with an initial draft this past school year and decided right before dissemination not to conduct the survey during the 15-16 school year. We wanted to make sure it was a valid and accurate tool, and so I think that's important. We've instead decided to utilize some samples from the Department of Justice. Also, there's a nice climate survey through the Higher Education Data Sharing Program. Though they're all geared towards higher education, we really think they could be revamped to be used towards 9 through 12 students. And so we're ready to conduct a survey, or preparing a survey to be conducted for our 9 to 12 students this fall. We're still looking at how that can be adjusted for students in our K through 8 population. We know it's important to find out if there are any issues, what the students feel are the issues, how well they feel like we respond. So we know it's important to find the information, but we want to make sure it's an accurate and adequate and valid tool. But we're looking forward to getting the data back from our high school students this fall.